Good morning, welcome. Good afternoon, sorry, we are late. Small Business Support Group, good morning and good afternoon to you. It could be good morning. You could be somewhere in the world that's in the morning. Yes, it could be. We have now, get ready for this, because Maz has had her internet sorted out. She's had a man round and he's messed with the cables. So there's Maz, and she's also got a headset. Good morning to you, Maz.
Andy, I'm a pro now. Good morning.
Don't touch the white section of the cable, because that makes a noise.
Okay.
Right, that's fine. And then here's Mark.
Hi, guys. I thought you were going to say, and Maz has had a guy around to look at a box, but obviously said wires, so that kept it all.
Literally, I was thinking that, and I thought, no, let's not lower the tone today.
Okay.
Anyway. Not since yesterday. Yeah. Grant's in, but he's in the car, so he's dropping in and out, but he's cool. There he is. Get him. Are you in the electric car today, are we? Or are we in the
He's on mute.
I know. You on mute, Grant? Can I unmute him here?
Well,
no, I can't.
I think you're right to mute him, actually.
well, we had to unmute yesterday because you were so noisy, Mark. Yeah, that's it. That's you, Mark. Isn't it?
I was on the rooftops of the offices, wasn't I? I was, yeah.
The noise was horrendous.
Were you in Birmingham again yesterday?
Yeah, I was in Birmingham yesterday, and it's quite interesting because obviously I'm pushing on the whole. We need to get back to normal. I know that the government have said the 4th of July for restaurants, hotels to open, all the rest of it. So we're planning a social Fridays for members to come together on the rooftops, open space, social distancing, all of this.
Hang on, is there going to be tea there for me?
There is definitely going to be tea. I've just had a chat with Yuki, who said, do you fancy using her mobile bar?
Oh.
So that'd be
well, as long as Yuki does orange juice for me and I've got tea, I'm happy.
There is tea.
Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. So let's just go through. Maz, what are you talking about today?
I'm going to talk about mental health in children.
Excellent. Okay. Mark, you've got hopefully you got a guest coming on, but we're not sure yet.
I have said I've got a guest. Inadvertently, if we don't have a guest, I'm sure he'll be here. But he does run a business, so he said the scaffolders are coming around. So.
Do you remember when I had my guest? He was on time.
Yes, he was. Yes.
Thank you.
You're speaking really different because you're on a microphone and a headset today, Maz. You just you're very proper. We'll leave Grant there because he's still on mute.
Still on mute.
He just wants to be on the camera. That's all he wants to be.
Yeah. Well, he probably gets more likes, doesn't he, being on the camera? Oh, no, he's off.
I'm on a call.
Yeah, you're very your volume level is very, very low as well. So just sit there, not yours, Grant's. You just sit there looking pretty, Grant, and we'll carry on with the show. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about Cineworld, which is reopening, which they give out all the instructions of how they're going to do it. So, Maz, let's kick things off with your bit.
So, good afternoon to everybody. New internet connection, so hopefully I won't be coming on blurry, and I've got a headpiece. So, but anyway, 3,000 parents, and I think it's about 600 children. They took part in, it's a first follow-up survey that's been conducted by the University of Oxford. And the study tracked the mental health effects on children during the coronavirus crisis. And they found that primary school pupils are suffering increasing emotional difficulties as lockdown progresses. So youngsters are showing increasing signs of feeling unhappy or worried, being clingy, as well as experiencing some physical symptoms linked to worry. I think it was children aged 4 to 10 who have shown that behavioral problems are increasing over time, such as temper tantrums, arguments, and children not doing what they're asked to do. I mean, parents of these children also reported increase in attentional difficulties as well as restlessness. And then we also have millions of children who are already growing up in vulnerable circumstances, those living in poverty, care or have special needs, or those who are already struggling with their mental health and are going to be facing, different difficulties. And when times are turbulent, schools are closed, and already hard-pressed services are losing staff to either sickness or redeployment, the gap for vulnerable children to fall through actually then becomes much wider. So personally, I don't think we needed a study to tell us that. I mean, I have a very, very actually bright 9-year-old at home who not only misses her friends, but the structure and routine, but also actually the invaluable teaching. And I can see that her moods have changed. She's definitely less patient, she's more demanding, and just low in general, despite me trying to keep a routine and structure in her life. We go out for walks, we go out for bike rides. I mean, children, they are, sticklers for routine and like to know what's coming. But we can no longer tell them with any certainty. I mean, just imagine as adults how we've been dealing with the crisis. I mean, Matt, you, Mark, Grant, there have been times where actually it's been really stressful. And this is us as adults. I mean, parents themselves are suffering due to the pandemic. I mean, with a quarter revealing that balancing working from home with childcare is having a negative impact on their mental health. Mark, you've had to do it where you've got 3 children at home. I've had to do it, and I've got 2 children at home. So many parents have said they were actually stressing about their children's education, and a third about their lack of exercise. And some parents even reveal that they don't believe that actually they've got really good parenting skills during the lockdown, due to their work commitments. I've actually thought that while I've been working, am I giving enough time to the children? COVID-19 is understandably having a significant impact on our physical and mental health, regardless of who we are or how old we are. So it's natural, I think, for every parent to wonder about the psychological impact of kids growing up under their shadow. Will the millions of children born or raised in a pandemic shake off their strangely disjointed early lives when it's over? Or will there be long-lasting effects for these COVID-19 kids? These kids need social contact for development and are at a crucial learning point in their lives. We've all had our issues as children, but it makes me think that these kids who have access to PlayStation, tablets, Netflix, I mean, the list goes on. What if the time that we were growing in, where we only had 3 TV channels, would it have been the end of the world for these children? I do think kids in the future will have a bad sickness record because they are being taught to be scared of a virus. No resilience, no perseverance, no up and go grit, which actually builds success. Is it going to be just a weak generation of kids with mental health problems and issues with isolation from their friends? I would say to the government, stop punishing these children to actually save the old. This is our future generation. These are the ones who will have their whole life in front of them and actually will have to work hard to pay the taxes and get rid of all this mess that's going to be left from the COVID. I mean, only time will tell about any long-lasting effects. But it's heartbreaking for me to see what's happening to children. I'm a mother of 2. And, really, they should be at school learning, soaking up the knowledge and playing with their friends, not stuck at home. I've been watching programs about how other countries have managed the whole situation. And I do think it puts us to shame. However, I do think that our whole education system is pretty poor compared to many other comparable countries. But that's a conversation for another day. So on that note, I'm conscious I think we have had our guests come in. Over to you, boys.
Thanks for that, Maz. Obviously, we've touched upon the education side of things many time over the past few weeks, and and the mental issues as well. Obviously, Mark brings that up a fair bit as well, which is all vitally important. Mark, have you got any questions that you want to put through to Maz, or anything you want to just mention?
I think it's great that you are bringing this up, Maz, again, because we've just had. It is good to keep repeating this because we've just had let's say the U-turn that the government had given with school free meals. Having been someone who you possibly feel like, Mark, business owner, owns his own property now, all the rest of it. What would he know about poverty? What would he know about, not having school meals or being in school to get those school meals? But, when I was growing up, and things are difficult enough nowadays, but when I was growing up, my mother, I'm sure she's too old now to be even prosecuted for this, because obviously you would be prosecuted for this.
What are you going to say?
She left me and my sister. I was 14. My sister was 12. And she left us in the flat on her own. She got a new boyfriend at the time. It's the first time. Split up from parents, so she had a new boyfriend. I'd never experienced anything like this before, where she was never around. And she went off for 3 days. 3 days, left us with no electricity.
Sorry.
No food in the cupboard. We only had a tin of peas. My friends rallied together to bring us food, to bring us money for electricity, because it was a coin machine. So my heart goes out to anyone who is in the poverty or below the poverty line and they're struggling for their children, because most parents, and I say most because generally it is that, will do anything and put themselves in harm's way before they put their children in harm's way. And all we're asking here is give our children the right to be educated. We're asking them to look after their well-being and send them to school. And at the same time, there are children who cannot, and parents, for the want or not, cannot afford to feed them. And school is the right place for them.
It is, because obviously they're continuing the free meals over the summer period, aren't they? Which, does that hint towards that schools are going to be open over the summer? Does that hint towards that?
Well, how are you going to give them free school meals? I mean,
exactly.
No. Hang on, guys. Sorry to interrupt you. Those free meals are going to come as a £15 voucher a week that you can use in the store. You're not physically going to get a meal. You are going to get a voucher.
It's not like school meals.
No. Yes, you'll get a voucher. And that's actually another discussion for another day, because that's really interesting, but it'll be about.
Let's not go there. We're running out of time on that one. It's fine.
But can I just summarize there then? And it sounds to me an awful lot, because obviously the local school have done a bit of a U-turn with taking some of the other kids back now and things like that. And I discussed this earlier about the whole situation where my children are key workers' children, so they're going and some aren't. I want all kids to go back, but the fact is they're still not getting, and they're taking more children back, but they're still not putting any in this particular school. I know some schools are putting on meals for kids. So my kids, because they're in that age group of year 2, I think it is, still have entitlement of free school meals. So the school are being given the funding, but they're not providing free school meals.
Right. Okay. Ooh, wow, that was loud.
Wow, who was that?
Who was that? Who's pinged then? Was that you?
That wasn't me. No, it wasn't me.
Sorry, I think that would come on my laptop, so apologies.
Okay, fair enough. That's right. Now, your guest, Steve, is popping in and out on the system. So I'm just going to do my Cineworld bit, and then hopefully he would have stabilised his connection before we bring him on. So, obviously, big entertainment fan I am, big movie person. So I had an email last night from Cineworld to say they're reopening on July the 10th. Now, it is obviously subject, yes.
Wow.
Yeah, it is subject to final clarifications and confirmations from the UK government, it says. But they've issued some of the details regarding how they're going to do this. Obviously, there's social distancing with the whole cinema, hand washing for all employees and customers in the toilets, hand sanitizers everywhere, additional cleaning, extra cleaning will take place throughout the day and after every single film. So what's happening is obviously they try and cram in as many showings of each film a day. That'll be reduced dramatically because they're going to go in and clean and sanitize every single cinema, every single seat after every showing.
Wow.
It'll only be e-ticketing, so you have to order all tickets online. And the reason for that is obviously allocated seats, because they've now updated their seating maps for every single screen in every single Cineworld in the world, in the UK actually, and that allows you to sit in groups, your own personal groups. And so if you've got a group of 4 with your family and possibly one other, if you can go along with a bubble friend, as they call them, then they will leave distancing front, behind, and to either side of you, of your family and friends. So we did ask that a few weeks back, and I thought that's how they were going to do it, but that's going to drastically reduce the number of people who can sit for each film. So we'll just see how that goes. There's plastic screens around the till systems, contactless payments if you want to buy your sweets and your drinks, Mark, because I know you like your little sweeties. And then there's full training and PPE for all the staff as well. So that's going to happen from the 10th of July. I did try and go online and book some tickets to see if they've got the seating allocation up and running yet, but you can't do it until July is here. So that's how they're going to do it. Let's hope it works for them. So, Mark.
Yeah, no, great. I think that's great because we're pushing forward with 2 events in July, face-to-face events. But the whole ethos has been for us guiding, following government guidelines, following the current procedures of distancing and hand washing, cleanliness, and all of this. Now, we can only do that in the same way Cineworld can only put up, like, should the government advice change, we can't do it. Should things move on, we'll have to move with it. And that's what I'm saying here. I'm saying we have to get back to business as usual, or we have to get back to supporting the retail hospitality industries. And the only way I can see us doing that is by going out like I've done with Chungying Cantonese and using the offices with ourselves who've got and Grant knows this, when they come into the room, they've got a heat censored body check. And they said, if your temperature is over 37, you will not be allowed in. And that's what we've been monitoring. They've got sanitizer all over the place. So I think that's what people will do, isn't it? So
are they going to let you in, Mark? Because obviously you're hot stuff.
I did have to run yesterday to get online for one of the meetings, and Ben, bless him, was in the reception. Grant knows Ben, and I was like, "Oh my God," panicking, thinking like my temperature is going to be over 37 now. I can't come in.
Surprisingly, it's the core temperature, isn't it, that that it tries to measure. So your skin temperature is not relevant.
Mark, the event that you're going to run, I'm just thinking, how are we going to sit then? There'll be social distancing on the table, will it?
Yeah. So the idea is, like, if you imagine you've got 2 meters, so there'll be 2 meters from where you're sitting. The restaurants have got to work with that. That's what we're all going for, the social distance inside. My honest gut feeling is we're going to get there. And the big winners out of here are going to be printer design, because they're going to have to redo everything at 1 meter. Yeah.
Well, Hollywood Monster, who their CEO lives in Dulwich, they're doing a lot of that printing at the moment, a considerable amount, and they're doing quite well. So we've got our new section for today. We're still having problems with Mark's guest who's coming in and out. We've got what we call a show and tell Wednesday. So you bring your own guest on, somebody who wants to have a chat, somebody who wants to have a chat on the show. And Mark has got his guest, but he's not here at the moment because he's zipped off again. So I can see him. He's walking around with his laptop trying to get a good signal, I think. So we'll just phone. I can't speak to him because he's actually come off the connection at the moment. So we are now filling, as they say in the broadcasting world.
So maybe you can do that.
Say that again. Sorry.
Grant.
No, it's all right. We've got him back. Let's just bring him in. Hi there, Steve.
Hi guys.
Right, you've got connection sorted.
I've got connection sorted, and you guys have stopped sounding like robots.
Oh, that's how Mark speaks. So don't worry about that.
I'm used to how Mark speaks. I have a built-in translator.
that's very true. Mark, so this is your guest. So do you want to introduce him and start things off?
Let's put some context into why people and our children went to Sunday school together in Birmingham, and they are still great friends now. And Steve and I, obviously friends, and even though I live in Gloucester, we still meet up and we do a dad's a beer. But over time, obviously, we've all grown up. Well, I have anyway, in the 70s and 80s, and we were talking about this. And Steve came to me and said, like, it's great that you're talking about Black Lives Matter, Mark, but no offense to you or anybody else, but you're three white people talking about Black Lives Matter. Maz is from the Asian community. So I said, well, don't just sit back, mate. Come and have a word, because we've got to learn from this. And you said this as well, Matt. You said we can't ignore it, and people need to, own it, if you like, and embrace it. So, I brought Steve along. Obviously he's a businessman as well, but obviously he wanted to give his viewpoints, and a balanced viewpoint, because he's a very intelligent guy. So, Steve, what do you think, mate?
Okay, right. Just put me straight on the spot. Okay. So someone asked me the other day, a good friend of mine said to me, he didn't like the word, he didn't like the words Black Lives Matter. And lots of people have been saying they don't like Black Lives Matter because it's highlighting what about everybody else, and people are saying, well, all lives matter. And I said to him, well, Black Lives Matter, obviously you've never been called a nigger, you've never been called being spat at and called a nigger or a mongrel or an half-breed, or all these derogatory names that I've heard and that I've been called over. Well, I'm 52 years of age. I started a school over in an area called Kings Norton, and my family was probably one of the first families of colour to arrive over there, 72, from Sparkbrook. And I remember, stays with me, a guy, big skin-headed guy, swearing at my mother, spitting at her, and calling her a nigger lover. These things were said, but they've been said and they've not been. No one stopped saying it. And I'm not generalising now. I'm just saying that it's been said, and we know that because it's only 3-4 months ago, while the football season was going on, that it was still being said, and football players were being abused for their colour, and this has been going on and on. I think what's come about is people of my age, right, have lived with it. We stopped it because it was happening to our parents, so we said no, and through that you had people rising up and rioting. I've got a list of the times when riots happened in this country, and there were race riots because people were saying no, we want to be treated the same. And when you look at that, so I'm just going to give you a little list here. 1958. Notting Hill race riot. The one of the last race riots was in 2005. 15 years later, we're having not race riots, but we're having demonstrations because things have still not changed. It's got better through political correctness, but it's still not changed. There's still a large mentality out there that still thinks that you should suppress or abuse all people because of their colour, their ethnicity, and then you can take that into religion. So when people talk about Black Lives Matter, if you've got a disability, so if somebody's got a disability, I cannot tell them what it's like to have a disability because I don't. My disability is the colour of my skin, really, because you can never hide that. As much as an amputee can never hide if they've got one arm or one hand. I mean, which is quite funny. So the work that I do with adapting homes, I went in to study dementia and Parkinson's, so I could actually understand to a degree what people's conditions are to help them. I can't ask you guys as white people to understand that. They just have to see and embrace it and accept that it does happen.
So, I mean, Steve, just talking on that for a minute, we talked about that. You know, you are going into a lot of senior homes where viewpoints are elderly, if you like, not all, but some haven't really changed. And obviously, I remember having a conversation once with my father, God bless his soul, about not using a derogative term. It was back in the 80s. I was 12 years old, I must have been. A derogative term towards a friend of mine. I said, you just can't say that. So obviously, when you're going into homes now and you're going into work with the senior population, if you like, is this more prevalent still with those guys, or is it kind of like they're coming with the equality side of things now?
You know something, sort of friends of mine, my friends' parents who have they've looked after me since I was probably 18, and they're a white family, grew up with them, and the mum said to me one day, Steve, we used the word coloured the other day, and we shouldn't. And I said, you know what? You're 75. You were told to use the word coloured. No one should be offended by that. They're not meaning it. They're not doing it on purpose to be rude to anybody. It's how they've been taught, and we have to accept that sometimes change, even though change, blame Amazon, change happens because everything happens so quickly. But in our minds, change comes slowly, and we still have to remember that we can't say this word, or we should say that word, and so on and so forth. Yeah, I'll take you for an example. My friend works, he runs a business. He hasn't seen one of the people in his business for a long time. He's male, she's female. He hugs her, gives her a kiss on the cheek. He's not allowed to do that anymore. He's half Italian. He's been doing that since he was 2. You know, but and that's a change. It's a change that's progressed, that's come in, and now they're saying you can't do that. So you have to, you know, we have to be aware of that. As for people that I come across in the 70s and 80s and so on and so forth, I don't find it offensive at all if I use the word coloured. One lady did say to me, I've never had anybody in my house like you before. And I laughed and said, that's because I've never been in your house. and we laughed about it. I understood what she was saying. No offence. It was a beautiful moment of her saying, being honest. You know, it's just society needs to be honest. It needs to accept people and say, right, I tell you what, because we have to put in and be signposted, Black British, Asian British, purple British, gay British, you know, unfortunately that segregates everybody. When if you're British, you're British. If you're English, you're English. If you're Welsh, you're Welsh. You're Scottish, you're Scottish. You know, and that means that you're all in the same, and you should all be accepted exactly the same. What Black people are saying is accept us. You know, we've been here a long time. If I was to look into it, my son asked me the question not so long back, why are Black people disliked, hated, victimised at times? Why were they enslaved? You know, one time slavery was a business, and that was business. But it wasn't just white people that enslaved, white Europeans. I use that. Islamic. It started whatever AD, and it was going from East Africa. You know, you talk about, you see it in the Crusades, you see it in going into Spain with the Moors and so on and so forth. It spread across the country, went across the world. It's just that there was a different part of slavery in European sense because it was more barbaric. Because
we've had a lot of issues surrounding heritage, heritage, with especially statues and things like that. My point has always been, you need to look to the history to learn the future. You can't push it under the brush it. Oh, you're right.
when your son appears and he's thinking, what's Dad doing?
Get off. I know there's a big thing at the moment where the government are calling an inquiry, all the rest of it over this, and yet they're saying we've already had an inquiry under Theresa May or something like that, earlier than that, and why aren't we using the findings from that inquiry? Because what they feel like there'll be another stalling block before anything gets done again.
Ignorance is bliss. And whilst it's not taught in schools, I'll be totally honest with you. There are some statues that I didn't have a clue who they were. So what we're dealing with what you have now is so there's our age group. So from 30 upwards, right? Who are going, oh, this is wrong. But from 30 downwards, they're a new generation. Yeah. They've been educated to accept everybody. Everybody is equal, and that 30 downwards are the ones that are going to change everything. And if as they're seeing it, they're seeing things that are wrong, what that their dads and mums have put up with, and their grandparents had to put up with, and their great grandparents in some cases have had to put up with, and they're going, no, this is ineptly wrong. We need to change. And they're the people, the 30-year-olds down, 25-year-olds down, who have come out of university, they've been well educated, and they're seeing people and going, well, they're the same as us. Yeah. And that's what changes. Maybe when I was growing up, we were the ones that were changing things. Sorry.
No, I was about to say, Steve, thanks for coming on. I've just sat here and listened. And when Mark said the other day that you wanted to come on, and the reason why you wanted to make not a statement, but you just wanted to talk about everything, and I really appreciate it, because it's for my back. I'm 51, so I'm in that bracket with you, and I think Mark's a little bit younger than us, but it's just he hasn't got as many wrinkles. He hasn't had so many problems in his. He's got black hair, so he's fine. He hasn't got grey hair like me.
He does.
Oh, does he? Ah, that's interesting. But so I'm amazed and shocked from what you're saying, from that this still goes on, the racial slurs, because I mean I was brought up in Washwood Heath, in Birmingham, and I lived there till 17, 18, and we never really had any race issues there. I mean, I did speak to Maz about it the other day, and she was talking about where she's from and her background, and we had the Indian problem of people writing things on walls and stuff like that, and go home this and go there home that. I mean, I can't bring myself to say anything that was written down then, and it's like 40 years ago, and then for you to say that you're still, I mean, when you're called that, when you were called that, the N word, I'm going to say, because I can't say it. Is that recently? Is that in the past few years, or is that?
No, well, I'm going to just show you something. This is what when I used to go to building sites, and this is what I'd face in the morning as I went. So I'm hoping you'll see this. I hope it's not offend anybody too much, but
well, I think we're just talking about. Oh, really?
And that used to be painted and sprayed on walls, and I took photographs. This is probably 8 years ago. So no, it's not something you face with now every day. But when we talk about history, whilst we celebrate winning the war and First World War, Second War, and other historical moments in our empire, and we have to then accept the bad parts of history. We have to accept the good and the bad, and we need to explain it. But that would be like, so you got what we talk Washford Heath. We can talk about Sparkbrook. Those areas where they were predominantly at one stage Irish, black, then Asian. Now then so Asian as in Sikh and Hindu. Then Islamic, Muslim. Now it's changed. It sweeps around. And my father, my mother's family are Irish Liverpudlians, white, and my father was Nigerian, and again tall Nigerian, tribal marks. Came over in 1952, 53. That's a long time. It was a different world. And then as I grew up, it was still a different world. My children, I hope, who are mixed race again, different blonde hair and olive skinned, they shouldn't have to face anything. They shouldn't have to hear any kind of word that's derogatory to how they look. And that's what everyone's trying to stop. It's stopping it for the future. Forget the past at times. We have to remember the past in the lesson, in the history. What we have to do is move forward and embrace what's gone on. Whether you know, across the board.
It's really, it's vitally important as we do move on and learn from everything that goes on. And I know that the race riots have been for decades now, and we experienced them in Washwood Heath back in the 80s, and it's as long as people learn from all this, it's the most important thing for me. And I understand the statues, and if they want to take the statues down, I understand that. I mean, I'm like you. I didn't even know that guy in Bristol on that statue. I never heard of him before in my life, and I could have walked past it and I've not know at all. So that was my ignorance, and I was probably never taught that. But history is important. Like looking back on the riots, where people will go, "Why did we have those riots?" You know, and then someone say, "Oh, it's because they were race related. There was this type of thing," and that's how you learn from this situation. And so the protests that are happening now are correct. But I mean, I noticed on one of those pictures you just showed regarding the swastikas on there and that type of thing. I mean, is that something that's still heavily prevalent? I mean, I haven't come across anything like that. Well, obviously, living in a different area now, but I've not come across anything like that.
Not on walls and things like that. You don't see it. I think it becomes, because of social media, there'll be lots of different groups, whether they be far right groups, whether they be, you know, we can talk about just loads of different groups. I used to be in the England fans club and go to football matches, and that could have been a very dangerous time, because it was still, people were still looking and going, but look at you're meant to be English. And I remember a guy saying to me, "You could do with some white powder on your face," because we were playing. We were playing Albania 10 years, 20 years ago. It is changing, because people they've had to change, but there will be still a lot of people. You know, I dare say, if we went down to London last weekend, you'd have seen lots of groups. The media used the term far right. I don't know how many would probably be far right, or maybe a small percentage would have been, and a large percentage may have been carried with the wave of protecting statues and so on and so forth, because those statues are part of this country. Even the ones who were connected to slavery are still part of the country. Take them, put them in the museum, explain what they did, good, bad, and educate people.
It's interesting. In Brussels, I heard on the news, in Brussels they've got a museum there, and they've only in the last 10 years rejigged things, because they were saying, I'm trying to get the context right, there was 200 names of Belgians, white Belgians, who'd lost their lives, nothing to do with the thousands of, you know, Africans who'd lost their lives through the slave trade. And what they've done is they've engraved all their names on the windows, so when the sun comes through, it shines onto the plaque over the 200 names. I think that's amazing. But what this director of the museum was saying is, like, we're not ignoring the past, we're embracing it by giving a full, colourful picture of it all. And I think that's what we need to get with the UK.
I'm sure, because I've actually travelled to Auschwitz. You know, I went to Auschwitz concentration camp when I used to do interrails around Europe. Amazing place to go to, and it is where it is. It's there to actually teach people about history, so it's not, you know, put away, forgotten about. What they need to do, but at the same time, in Germany, there's no statues of Adolf Hitler.
No.
So you know, if there is, it's all in museums, and maybe again, I'll just use a Winston Churchill statue. That people, I don't believe in defacing. I don't think that things should be defaced. I don't think graffiti should be put on anything. Some people will just go about doing things the wrong way, or in their views will be the right way. Winston Churchill, we will put in as a hero of our country because of what happened in the Second World War. But our history dictates another part of the decisions that he made. But those decisions weren't made on his own. They were made as a group or as a nation. I'm not quite sure on the history, so I won't go into it. But the people there that see him then as a fascist, but I think, or a racist, I think it's more a case of it was many decisions made by many people, but only one person stands in front. And again, unless you know the history of it, you can't really say.
Grant, do you want to? I know you've been getting to the office there. Do you want to make any points here, or make a question?
I think there's so much to go into here, and really appreciate Steve coming on and sharing all of this, because it's it's I don't know whether fascinating is the right word, but in terms of my as a the typical middle-aged, middle-class white guy, about as average as it gets in terms of the UK. It's difficult to get into too much of a debate, because often if I start to have a debate about Black Lives Matters, or generally racism, or my view is often not deemed as important, because I'm a middle class white guy. What do I know about it? The debate that I would prefer to have is with anybody that would like to discuss it with me, is just prejudice in general, because that's the thing that gets my goat. I mean, for me, Black Lives Matter as a slogan and as a movement is just blindingly obvious. I can't even believe that it's even something we need to have a discussion about. Obviously, Black Lives Matter. Obviously, it came about obviously because of the guy that, the death over in the States that was so, tragic and blatant. But for me, the problem is not necessarily racism, and I may well get shouted down on this. It's ignorance, okay? It's prejudice and it's stupidity, because racism, in its essence, is just a ridiculous concept. And anybody that participates in racism, in my view, just hasn't thought it through. They must be so stupid to think that the colour of somebody's skin influences or should target them as any. But it's the same with religion, with nationalities. Any kind of prejudice is just ridiculous, and that's the bit that. Maybe it's because I'm a futurist, I like to think about where we're heading, and things are better than they were, but they're still really bad, and we've seen that over the last few weeks. And I would prefer the approach for this to be one of ridicule, because anybody that participates in racism, sexism, or any other ism you can think of is, I really want to swear now, thick as shit. They just are.
We on
There
goes the LinkedIn license.
Sorry, it's just mind-numbingly frustrating to think that we have to have a debate about it, that people are still so stupid that they would consider racism as a good thing to do. I don't, and so with that in mind, it's the Black Lives Matter thing for me is almost giving validity to their stupidity. Do you know? Because it shouldn't. It's just ridiculous, and I think we should be ridiculing them. I think we should be laughing at the people, not the tragic side of it. We should be giving prejudice to the people that are prejudiced. Do you know? It's mind numbing.
I'm a great believer, Grant. Okay. As we grow older, as we grow up, prejudice comes to us naturally, because you can be prejudiced against a football team. You can be prejudiced against a colour of a person, but that takes you into race, and because they differentiate us as a race, so a black race, white race, instead of saying human race, and putting us all in the same category. We all bleed red, you know. It's already been embedded. It's embedded. It's been embedded for centuries. So racism has been embedded for centuries, and it will take a long time to eradicate and get rid of. But if it's a minority, and there's say 5% people that are racist, then what we have to do is the 95% of the people need to stand up and shout loud and say, no, we don't accept this. And once everybody says we don't accept it, you know, we can move on and we can all become, as we should do, the human race, and be happy, because, you know, that's what we get told. That's how we should be. Briefly.
Go on, carry on.
What you did last week, I thought was fantastic. You know, it's good to get people talking, regardless to whoever you are, sexuality, white, brown, purple. Everybody needs to talk.
No, that's very true. It is, and that was the point I was trying to make last week, even though it was my stupid self that was just chatting away last week. But yes, I think finishing now, I think is the perfect place, Steve, for that. It is. Everybody needs to talk about this, and we really need to open our eyes to this situation, because my eyes were blinkered. Unfortunately, I didn't realise it was so prevalent and still around as much. So, Steve, thank you very much for coming on and taking your time out of your day. It's been excellent to have you on, and Mark will speak to you later. So this is the bit where I have to throw you off. Unfortunately, there's no.
Thank you for having me, everybody.
This. No problem, mate.
Steve. That was really insightful. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Steve. Thank you. Thanks, great. Right, that is it for today. This has been a great show. We've nearly done 50 minutes on that one. Mark, thanks for bringing Steve on. Grant, thank you very much. Maz, wonderful, nice to see you. And the internet is looking great. We will see you. We will see you tomorrow at midday, everybody. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Okay, ciao. Bye.